Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. Really excited for my next guest. His name is Randy Wolfe. Randy is a multi-business owner and passionate real estate investor. He's a mentor and coaches new and aspiring real estate investors on how to get started with real estate investing. He launched his first company, Palmetto United, in 2009, building a successful insurance and marketing business. After several years in doing real estate part-time, he founded Wolfe Real Estate Investment Group, and that was in 2020, followed by co-founding Velocity Real Estate in 2022, focused on land deals and single-family rentals. Randy, thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, you got it, man. So you and I met through one of our mastermind groups called Investor Fuel. Mike Hambright's great group. And I loved that group. So many really inspirational people there, lots of operators, people that are doing exciting things. And it isn't typically an area where people who are mentoring get together, but you've decided to move into this mentorship world. What was it that caused you to switch from just being a pure operator to teaching others how to accomplish what you've been able to accomplish?
Yeah. Well, in my background, I started out actually as a teacher and high school coach. So I was teaching social studies, and I was a head wrestling coach and an assistant football coach. And so, one of the things that I've always been really, really passionate about is coaching and teaching. And so, and we may go into the backstory later, but basically though, that was when I really thought about what I was passionate about. That was something I knew I wanted to come back to. It just wasn't a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money and income in that business. And so, starting the insurance agency and getting into real estate, I knew that at some point that's something that I wanted to get back to helping others. And so, this was something that after putting a lot of thought into it, I said, I don't need to wait. I need to start doing this now. And so that was kind of how I started to, and this is just real, I just kicked it off this year. And so it's relatively new, and it's still in the process of continuing to build it.
Yeah, I love it, man. There's so many people out there that need help. And, there's a wrong way to do it and there's a right way to do it. But I feel like you're down the right path because your mission's rooted in helping people view real estate as a way of leaving unfulfilling jobs. Yeah, right. So what was it about your previous career that drove you to doing real estate full time?
Yeah, so, as I said, I love the coaching aspect of what I was doing. Coaching wrestling and football. Teaching was a little challenging at times in the classroom, but at the end of the day, it was really at that point in my life, and we go through different seasons. At that season of my life, it was really about I needed a way to provide for my family. My wife, Catherine, she always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That was really important to her. She went to college, got a degree. But her thing was she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and so I knew that with what I was making as a teacher and a coach, that was going to be very difficult to do. And so I ended up, I got my real estate license because I thought that's kind of what you had to do in order to invest in real estate, and then dabbled a little bit. And at about the same time, a little bit after that, got my insurance license and started really having success. I was dabbling in real estate, but the insurance at that time, Medicare Advantage, was really getting kicked off and growing, and so it was a good time, and I was hungry to go after it. And so I started having a lot of success with that, and so I put real estate on pause for a while I was building and growing my insurance agency because I was still teaching and coaching, so I was doing so much. And then gradually, while I was building my insurance agency, I was still dabbling a little bit in real estate, and it was about I think it was 2016. I was on a flight out to Las Vegas to see a friend of mine, and I was in the process of reading the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And there was a fable in that book, the fable of the Mexican fisherman. And for anyone that hasn't read it, you check it out. But it really made me stop and start thinking, what am I doing? Because I was really starting to get burned out at that point. And I knew that I really wanted to to get involved and invest in real estate. And so the house that we had, I kept it when we moved, and I rented that house out. And that was my first sort of experience. And then after that, I bought my first deal that was specifically for real estate, which ended up being a disaster, that deal. But I learned a lot from it. So, so that's kind of how my path got into actually investing in real estate. And then I just continued to grow my portfolio of houses. And I kind of took it at a little bit of a different approach too. A lot of people, I think, start out wholesaling. I ended up starting out with rentals. It was kind of how I started, because I had my insurance business that gave me the ability to kind of fund that in the beginning and get that going. And then I used the burst strategy quite a bit in the early days.
So you do all different kinds of exit strategies. It looks like you're doing more land deals now, but how did you sort of build your company? Was it fix and flip, rentals? What was the main exit strategy you focused on?
Yeah, so I actually have slowed down the land now. I'm back to more buying whole rentals and some flips. But in the beginning, that first deal that I was talking about, I had my house that I kept as a rental. But the first one that I bought, the intention was to flip it. And it was just, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I made all the mistakes that you could possibly make. Went way over budget. It was a really... I took some licks learning. And by the time I got through, and it's a long story, but long story short, by the time I got through that first deal, I wasn't really going to be able to make a lot of money selling it. That flip was going to end up being about a break-even deal. And even though I had that first rental, I sold that in 2020. I sold it with owner financing. And so I really was nervous about being a landlord. I just had this negative connotation of, man, it's going to be dealing with, toilets, tenants, all these problems. So I sold that one on seller financing, and I was looking at trying to flip this one. And when it didn't work out, the lender who I'd built a relationship with, got to know him. And I said, hey, I was going to do like sort of like a sub-2 hybrid type of deal disposition. And he said, they really want me to do that. So I decided to keep it as a rental. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts, Brandon Turner, and I was like, maybe I can do a cash out refi. And so I said, can I pull my money out? And he said, yeah, the numbers make sense. And so I ended up doing a BRRRR, and I was like, this is great. Got all my money back. Property was cash flowing, and I'm like, this is magic. I'm just going to keep doing this over and over and over. Forget flipping, forget wholesale and all that. So that's what I started doing. I started BRRRRing and using creative financing to just start scaling my portfolio. So, and then of course, along the way, I would do an occasional flip, occasionally would wholesale a property, but that was really how I started out. And then, the land thing came a little later, where I had a partner and we were flipping land all around the country. And then, we would buy it, sell it on terms, package the notes up and sell the notes. And so that was kind of a strategy that we were using with the land. At that time, we were doing a lot of that.
Got it. So that's the cool thing about real estate, is that, like, you may have one strategy in mind, but then realize down the road that that property doesn't really fit that strategy, and you can pivot.
Yeah.
And that, now that you know that experience, like, you have this whole toolbox of different things you can do. So you can look at any property and be like, oh, that's not a flip, like, that's a BRRRR. Right. And the newbies don't always get that, because they haven't had that experience to be able to see that in advance. But that's what you can share with people now that you have a mentorship, is you can show them these different tools that they can put in the toolbox. And really, every property is a deal, especially at the right price, right? But if it's not the right price for a wholesale or a fix and flip, it could be a great rental property. And then if it's not, maybe it makes sense as a BRRRR. So how do you now navigate all those different exit strategies and all the different ways you can look at a property? And then how do you teach that to others?
That's a great question. So as far as teaching it to others, I do think when a person is getting started investing in real estate, I think that they should really have sort of a focus in the beginning. But one of the things that I'm always teaching and coaching is massive imperfect action. So learn, but be doing while you're learning. So, but in the beginning, I think it's important to have a focus, but at the same time, you still need to be learning different strategies and techniques while you're doing. And so going back to my story there, I mean, that was something that that was not my intention, but I was able to pivot. And as you know, being in business, like, things don't always go the way you plan for them to go. And so you need to have the understanding and knowledge of having to pivot. And so for me now, I basically look at each opportunity and just look at it from multiple different ways to, number one, buy it, but also to disposition it. And so if I'm looking at a deal, and it's like, okay, like we've got one right now that's we're doing an novation on. And so it's like, it just depends on the circumstances I can look at it in, look at different options, whether it's creative financing, whether it's cash, and then on the disposition side, it's like, hey, does it make sense to sell this, to keep it, to burn out? I have a property right now today that hopefully is going to go under contract, and I literally just bought it really low, and I closed on it. So I actually took the property, because South Carolina is a little weird, but that's where I'm from and live, and on wholesaling stuff. So I actually closed on the property, took the property down, and my plan was either to keep it as a rental or flip it. But I said, you know what, I'm going to put it out there and see if there's anybody interested. So I have my real estate license too. So I listed it on MLS, and I've got someone interested, and hopefully we're going to be writing a contract. So I'm literally just wholetailing that property to somebody. So it's definitely nice as you get more advanced to have multiple exit strategies and be able to look at a deal and kind of from different perspectives of how to put it together. But teaching new people, though, it's good to have some focus in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
And honestly too, like, the best strategy for a property isn't always necessarily the one that's going to make you the most money.
Yes.
Because that one could be a long game. Right? Maybe the way it's going to make you the most money is a fix and flip. But if you've never done a flip before and you're brand new, and you have to go out and source materials and make sure the comps are right and manage the trades, be a general contractor on the deal or hire one and know what to look for. Like, that could be a nightmare. So are you teaching beginners, like, yeah, be focused, but let's start with basic stuff, like maybe wholesaling?
Yeah. Basically, I try to dig into what their why is, why they're doing it. And so I think a lot of it has to do with what is it that they want to accomplish, and also too, where they are today might also be indicative of what makes more sense for them. So, for example, if you have somebody that, let's say, is working 40 hours a week, W-2, high earner, that sort of thing, fix and flip's probably not going to be the thing for them to do. I mean, yeah, they could build a business and all that, but if they're working all the time and they don't have a lot of opportunity to do that, but they've got the money, they could potentially look at buying rentals and having property manage that and building wealth over time. If you have someone that's basically, they hate their job, like they just absolutely hate their job and they want out, then wholesaling could be a great opportunity for them to try to wholesale and make today money so that they can support themselves to get out of their job and then focus on real estate full time. So I think it really depends on a person's why are they doing this. And obviously everybody's like, well, I want to make money. Like, okay, cool. But then, like, why? What are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. And then their what they have today, if they don't have the time today, but they're trying to get to where they can do it full time, okay, maybe it's a little more focused on today money, and then eventually rolling in some buying whole properties to build wealth. But I think it's you hear a lot about rental properties and building wealth, but truthfully, though, if someone's trying to leave their job, it's going to take a lot of rental properties for them to get to a point where they can support themselves and family.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at their why. And then I think a skill everyone should know in real estate investing is finding deals. How to market. Because at the end of the day, we're kind of marketers in our business.
Yeah.
Finding, reaching out, finding deals. And then as you scale a business, getting into systems and processes that can help you consistently, source those deals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. The other thing I tell people is that think about what you're good at. Like if it's a marketing role or a sales role, like if you're not good at sales, if you don't like talking to people, if you can't get out there and earn people's trust and get them to start to lower those walls down a bit so you can figure out what the problem is and see if you can solve it, then that's it. maybe that's not for you. Like you should just be, maybe working with an agent, like we mentioned earlier, who can do some of that for you, or do division of roles within the company. Like you can hire somebody who can do the sales. And then maybe if you're more of an integrator, you can do the back end of the business, right? Or you're just making sure everything's running. So I think a lot of it has to do with like doing a personal inventory on what you're good at and what you have the time to be able to do and learn.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Benson, because I think that I do that a lot now. I reflect like, what is it? What do I want my quarters, my months, my weeks, my days? What do I want them to look like? And sometimes, even still to this day, I struggle. I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and I'm like, I like keep a list of things, and I'm like, everything that takes my energy away. There's a great book for your listeners out there, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. If your audience hadn't read that, definitely recommend it. But it's just talking about like a time audit and trying to figure out like things that take your energy. Being able to delegate those off, or just it doesn't make sense for you to do it. Like for me, like spreadsheets and all that stuff, that's so painful to me. But there are people out there that love that, so it's
Right.
like, why do I want to do that if I just dread it when there's someone that loves it? I'm more visionary and big picture, and so yeah, I think that, and I think too where you are today also, because like. People want to build wealth and that sort of thing. And it's like, but if you're trying to get out of your job that you dislike today, then you need some today money too,
Right.
So it's like, I think that those things kind of channel into, okay, what sort of investing is going to be the best? If someone has a lot of money, they could literally be a private money lender and just loan money out. And they don't have to, that's pretty passive, versus fix and flip is pretty active for most fix and flippers.
I like that you made that distinction between active and passive, because you were saying today money, that's the active money, right? That's where you're doing transactions, you have closings, there's a disbursement of cash at the closing that you can pay yourself with, right? So if someone is thinking about leaving the job, you need to fit the active investing is key. And the main ones, right? Fix and flip. There's a closing, takes a little bit of time, but you're going to have a payday where you're going to get a big check if you do it right? If you do it right.
Right.
Wholesaling, right? You still have to have a closing, a lot less risky to do a wholesale deal because you don't need a whole lot of your own cash. You don't need an expertise in construction and managing others. But if you can identify deals, the right ones, and get them under contract and negotiate those deals, then you can have a closing and get that assignment fee. Right? Is there another active kind of strategy that you think people can use besides those main two?
Yeah, I think it's becoming a way more challenging. But like if you're going in, if you look at kind of like short-term rentals, that is a much more active side of investing than long-term rentals. So you're going to get typically, again, if you do it right, you're going to be able to make a lot more upfront money because your rents are going to be a lot higher, but it's going to be much more active than say a long-term rental that's managed by a property management company. So so that's something that people can do. There's also a lot of, not to get in the weeds on it, but like tax benefits from that. So there's, if you're classified as a real estate professional, long story short, like you can take you take depreciation and put that against your active income. But if you're a working professional on it, and there's certain rules where if you have a short-term rental, you can in essence kind of do that. It's certain criteria you've got to meet. And so that can be another great way for someone to help with their tax situation too. So that is definitely more active than long-term rentals. And that could be a strategy that people could use as well. But yeah, there's active and passive, and very like even long-term rentals are not completely passive. That's another kind of a myth, I think, that people think they're passive. But even if you have property management and you don't self-manage or manage in the house, you're still going to have things come up and property management reaching out to you, and you've got to make decisions, and so it's not completely passive. But it is one of those deals where you can build wealth in a variety. There's a variety of things going on. There's appreciation. There's debt pay down if you use leverage. There's all of these things going on where there's you've got appreciation, prices going up, value of the property, depreciation for your taxes. You've got debt pay down, so it's a great way to build wealth over time. But there again, if you need today money, that you need a lot of those to do that. So I always recommend for someone that needs today money, look at some active things, and then occasionally try to pick up some rentals as you're growing.
Right.
Because one thing I've noticed is there are exceptions to the rule. So I don't want to say this and people say, well, that's not. But unless you build a substantial wholesaling business or a substantial real estate business and you have a ton of employees and systems, most of those are very active, and the people who have success with that generally start buy and holding after that. So they end up wanting to hold assets. There are exceptions to people that build these businesses and then maybe they sell them, or they have such a rock star team that they're really like hands off. But those would be the exceptions. Most of the people are still very involved in those businesses that have them.
Right. And if you're doing rental properties, 90% of the time you need some liquidity to be able to put that down payment down and get financing to be able to acquire. So you need at least 20% down. So anybody who's going the passive route, who wants to build a portfolio of cash flowing properties, is going to need some cash to do it. Now, it doesn't have to be your own cash. You could raise that cash from somebody else, right? Or you might even get involved in a fund, right, where you invest in a fund and someone else is kind of doing that for you. That's really passive, right? But that can be great returns if you get into the right project where you can double your cash every 5 years, 3 to 5 years in the right kind of fund, which I think that's where I think a lot of people will end up. And I started a fund. I don't know if I told you that, but there's years and years and years of people I've seen people want to do this business, and we know that more than 90% of them are going to fail, but they still understand that real estate is the best vehicle for building wealth. It's just they get it in their head that they have to be the one doing it, right? Because it's been glamorized by HGTV and all the gurus out there, and they're like, oh yeah, come sit on the beach with me and drink Mai Tais and we're going to be rich together, when most people aren't going to get there. So I think passive investing in a fund is a great thing for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. Funds are great. I'm invested in 2 funds. So I've got that going on as passively going on. I'm an LP. I'm not a GP. I'm an LP in 2 funds. The also too, something that I'll step back on too is with someone, there are ways that Brandon Turner, he might have coined the whole house hacking term, but like where you can actually, if you don't have a lot of money, you can leverage an FHA loan. Or if you're a veteran, you can use a VA loan to buy a property, like a small multifamily, and let's say it's a triplex, live in one unit, rent out the other units, or even a house where you obviously if you got a big family, this is tough to do, but you can buy a house and then rent out the rooms as well, because co-living is something that's really starting to get popular. And so that's one of the reasons I love real estate so much is you can generally, for those of us who know the industry, know the business, there's ways that anybody can invest in real estate, whether you are flat broke with bad credit, or if you have a lot of money liquid and you want to be totally passive and put it in a fund, or you want to loan it out, that sort of thing. It's really, I love it because there's so many options and ways. Sometimes for someone starting out new, that can be a challenge though, because they're like, where do I start? There's so many different ways to do this. Where do I even start? So.
Yeah, where do they start? But that's where mentorship comes in, right? Which is so valuable. And almost everybody I talk to who has had some success in this business, even if they're not a coach, says that they should invest in some sort of guidance. Right? Whether it's a course or mentorship or coaching, like it's better to have somebody who's been there and done that guide you down the path than you slipping and falling and making a huge mistake and then being one and done, right? If that first project you did, if you hadn't figured out a way to solve that, you likely would have been finished in real estate investing and moved on to something else.
100%.
And so not a lot of people can recover from that. And honestly too, there's bad coaches out there. There's
Yeah.
people who will entice you with a $20,000 coaching program, who hasn't invested for 20 years, but
Right.
is really good at selling and get you
Yeah.
to buy into their coaching program. How do
Right.
you tiptoe that line? Like, how do you not become one of the snake oil salesmen,
Hmm.
but still provide value and get people to come and want to work with you?
So you're saying that from the perspective of the coaching side of it, or
Yeah,
like
from the
from
coaching side of it, right?
okay.
Because
Yeah.
there's a wrong
So
way and a right way to do it, and
mhm.
you might be able to sell more by doing something that doesn't make you feel good and allow you
Right.
to sleep at night, but not also be able to deliver and fulfill what you promised.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think number one, it goes kind of where's your heart. I mean, if you are um, if it's just all about the money, then that's not a good thing. I think you've got to really truly have in my opinion, to be a good coach. I think number one, you've got to have done the thing you're coaching about. In most cases, I mean, maybe there's some exceptions, but typically, if I'm going to get mentorship from somebody, and the mentorship that I've had, I want to be around people that have done the thing that I'm trying to do. So, like, for me, I'm not going to be coaching people on, how to set up a, $100 million fund or something, or I'm not coaching people on how to go out and buy a, 600 unit apartment complex, because at this stage I haven't done that. So I think basically keeping it, because I would say, just from my years of the insurance business, whatever, I'm a pretty good salesperson, so I could sell people on whatever. But I want to keep my integrity, and I want to stick to what I've done and what I've accomplished. And also too, I want to be able to truly change people's lives. Like, when I say, like, I think you could take people who are further advanced in their journey and do some amazing things. But for me, I like the idea of literally changing someone's lives. Like, hopefully years and years, hopefully I live to be an old man. And, at my funeral, there's a bunch of people there that say, wow, Randy really helped change my life. I went from this job that I hated to success. So I think, like, teaching and coaching what it is that you're an expert in. Also, too, I think really trying to focus on results. For me, one of the things that I originally was really excited about and I wanted to do, I was going to create courses. I was like, I got all this knowledge. I'm gonna create courses, and then I would be able to scale that dramatically, because obviously, if I create a course, it's like it's there forever. And so that was originally what I thought about doing. But then at the end, I'm like, the information is out there. Like, I give away so much information on my YouTube channel. I mean, the information's out there, but really, to get people the results, I think that's where the mentorship comes in. I think that's why you just said it earlier. I agree. The most successful people I know are involved in communities. They get mentorship, and so I think that that's why I started to kind of change my perspective on that and say, okay, I need to build a community. I need to basically be involved. And ultimately, my goal is to bring on more people to help kind of facilitate and grow it. But I don't know if that answers the question or not, or I can elaborate more. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that just being true and genuine, and really trying to help people, and not just make it about how much money you can make, um, but actually really trying to help people achieve an outcome that's going to better their lives.
Oh yeah. It's still early on in the creation of your program and your group, but do you have any
Oh yeah.
stories of people who you've helped, or maybe something, an inspirational story of someone else's life that was changed through another program that you know of?
Yeah, so mine is new. I just kicked it off at the first of the year, and I'm trying to just think about. I mean, I've talked to people who are, my focus is new and aspiring investors. So getting people off the sidelines is probably one of the biggest challenges, I think. And so getting people off the sidelines. I'll tell you a quick story, a neat story about the land business. So he and I are buddies. We're both Citadel guys. He graduated a little after me, and he was wanting to really get going in real estate. And so he and I actually, he was asking me some stuff, and we went to a local REIA together, and he was just really excited about getting started. And he was somebody that I knew as an action taker. You know, he wasn't just going to talk about it. He's going to take action. And so we went to this REIA, and we're talking. And so we're after the thing's over, we're outside talking or whatever. And I said, man, you just want to just do a deal together or something? And I don't know if he remembers. He said, man, I thought you'd never ask, you know? And I'm like, well, yeah, let's do it. So, you know, it was cool to be able to put together deals with him. We now own like 5 or 6 rentals houses together in our partnership. And then we did the land flipping. And like I said, we haven't done a lot with the land flipping because now he's doing some commercial real estate stuff on the retail side. But it was cool to see that, like, you know, I could kind of help him get started with this. And then there's, you know, in the community, so far, a lot of the people, like I said, are in the phases of just starting to take some action. And so that's been the number one thing I've noticed is I'm just a little different. Like when I make my mind up that I'm going to do something, I'm all in. Like I'm the whole, you know, ready, fire, aim, you know,
Right.
like I'm doing it. Most people aren't like that. Most people they want to get more information and they want to consume, but they don't take action. And so for me, I think that's the biggest thing is for new people is getting them to take action. So I've helped some people, you know, underwrite some of the deals that they're working on and that sort of thing. But I would say my business partner, that was a cool story, you know, getting him really going in it and having some success.
What do you think it is that causes people to sit on the sidelines? Right? There's some common trends, right? Limiting beliefs. People don't know if they deserve it. You know, they don't think they're good enough. Like, what have you learned so far is really keeping people from taking action?
Yeah, I think limiting beliefs, I think you hit a good one there. I think fear of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting beliefs, you know, like someone that hasn't invested in real estate and no one in their family has, you know, you can probably imagine the first thing when they start telling their family that I'm going to invest in real estate. You know, their first thought is, well, you're going to lose all your money. That's risky, you know? And so I think the limiting beliefs, the fear, and I think too, the fact of the matter is that there's so few people who are entrepreneurial or who do invest in real estate, those sort of things, that it's scary if you're trying to do it on your own and you're not involved in a community or getting mentorship. There's just, and even when you are, it's still scary. And so there's just this fear of, I need to know just a little bit more information before I do the thing, whether that's start a business, invest in real estate. And so for me, I look at it as, and I coach this, is you've got to take action while you're learning. Take massive imperfect action. Doesn't mean you go out and you buy a bad deal because you don't know what you're doing, but you do these, you know, KPIs. It's like have KPIs like I'm going to do this thing this many times a week. You know, if it's I'm going to drive for dollars, I'm going to drive by and I'm going to find at least 10 properties this week that are dilapidated, and I'm going to, you know, if you're going to mail them, I'm going to skip trace them and call them, or I'm going to mail them. But you have those KPIs that you can do. Like you can't accept whether someone's going to, or you can't guarantee someone will accept your offer, but you can say, I'm going to do these things this week. So just starting to take action, so many people are just apprehensive because they feel like they need to know more.
Mm-hmm.
I heard kind of this analogy one time about how, you know, when it's foggy outside and you're driving down the road, and if you know you've got to drive a ways and you're going to take a right at the red light and all that, if you never start, you're not going to see far enough. You've got to go down the road so far enough so you can see the red light and know where to turn and all that. So if you have that, you know, paralysis by analysis and never get started, those are the people that, you know, they just read a book and watch YouTube, listen to podcasts, but they never take action, so they never do it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And every little action that you take builds confidence, right?
Yes.
So if you think, okay, well, I'm scared to get a bad deal, but if you can get yourself to evaluate 10 deals, right? And then you can prove to yourself that you can evaluate 10 deals. Then you feel much better about the next milestone. Like, hey, I can do this. I met my goal of 10 deals this week.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not as much of a deadbeat as I thought I was, or as my dad told me I was, or, the people in my sphere that are, in my echo chamber saying that you're not good enough. So you can prove to yourself along the way by doing these actions that you are worthy of what the outcome is that you want, which is to close deals and make money, get out of the rat race, achieve financial freedom, provide for your family. But those little milestones along the way, that's what you use to build upon.
That's right. Yeah, that very first deal that I talked about, that was the disaster, like that shaped the path that I ended up. Like, I started out where I was like, I'm going to flip houses. That's all I want to do. I want to flip houses. And that one deal taught me so much. Taught me about managing contractors. It taught me about, repairs. It taught me about code enforcement. There were so many things that I learned. It taught me about the opportunity. I had heard about cash out refinancing and Burr, but like I never went through it. And so then I went through it, and by the time it was all said and done with, this disaster turned out to be a blessing, man, because I was like, this is awesome. Like I can do this over and over and recycle capital. And so and that's what often happens on people's journey, whether it's entrepreneurial journey or real estate investing, is as you get further down the path, your experiences open these new opportunities. And so you may be planning on going here, but your experiences take you over here, and it ends up being such a blessing and a better situation. And so yeah, that's. But I think people nowadays with mindset, it's kind of turned into this sort of buzzword and sort of woo-woo, but like mindset is so important. You've got to have the right mindset, and you've got to be able to take action and understand that like it's not going to go the way exactly how you hope it is, but you have to adjust along the way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, definitely it's a challenge for a lot of people to take action.
I think that the mindset piece of it is overlooked too often in all these courses and everything that people sell. Like, it might be one paragraph that's about mindset, and the rest of it is all the mechanics and the technicalities and the execution of doing the things and talking about all the different exit strategies. But it's like, if the person doesn't get their mind right to start, and a friend of mine, he calls it the inner game. He's like, if you can't get your inner game straight, you're not gonna be able to get on the field and play the game itself, because you're up here in your head thinking about all the reasons why it won't work, or you get stuck in the minutia. I think a great analogy, I don't remember where I heard it first, but I love football, right? Yeah. And you think about like a rookie quarterback coming out of college, he starts his first year, and he's at mini camp, right? He hasn't even played a game yet, but he's there. Preseason's coming, and he's doing it all, right? He's thinking about his mechanics. He's thinking about his footwork. He has to look at like the offense and where everyone's positioned, and they haven't even played a team yet. And people will fail even before getting on the field because they're so in their head about all the things they got to do. And then they're still working on their confidence, right? Like, am I really an NFL quarterback? Can I accomplish this? And then when they talk to quarterbacks their second year, and they ask what was the biggest thing, maybe they've seen some movement toward like the end of the last season. Like, well, what was the biggest thing? And they always say the game starts to slow down.
Yes, yeah.
And the reason is they're not worried about the inner game as much anymore, but they're also not worried about the basics. The feet just does the thing, right? They don't have to think about it anymore. Their arm motion, right? They've worked enough in practice with a team to know where they're going to be on the field, and they've done enough reps. Now they can focus on the defense.
Yep.
And just trying to figure out what the defense is doing. Everything else takes care of itself. Business is a lot like that. Like, you just have to do the things, do the reps, overcome those limiting beliefs, and just get out there and take action, and then everything will slow down. And then you can start to see opportunities.
That is so true, man. Like, one of the interesting things about when I was a high school coach, or even when I coached my son's youth football, all the years that he played youth football too, that was so much fun. But one of the things when I was a coach is we were doing the thing. Like you go out there, and if it's a kid's first time stepping on a wrestling mat, we're teaching them how to wrestle. If it's a kid's first time on the football field, we're teaching them how to play, play. But like when it comes time to line up for tackling drills, or when it comes time to go live with another wrestler, like you're doing it. And typically, especially with wrestling, you're going to get your butt kicked probably, but you're learning while you're doing it. Versus I feel like in business, entrepreneurship, real estate investing, a lot of people they don't start doing the thing, they just trying to learn it. And you're going to really, really learn it so much better when you're doing it, And so, yeah, like you were talking about with the like they're out there doing it, they're learning it, they're experiencing it, they're failing at times. That's whole another topic. Like with school, you really, you're taught that you don't want to fail, but it's like in entrepreneurship and everything else. It's like fail fast, like get through it, work through it, adjust, and then and so yeah, that's so very true, so very true.
And handling failure is a skill in upon itself. Like,
Yeah.
and the bigger the risk, the harder you fall, the bigger the potential financial impact
Right.
of that mistake. Right, like with a fix and flip, if that's the first thing you ever do is a fix and flip, oh my God, it could ruin you.
You
Right?
can get hit in the mouth. Yeah.
Or
Right.
let's say they got a family member to invest. Well, now those relationships are damaged, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you could never pay that person back. So it's how do you talk to people about failure?
Yeah, so I think I think that when so there's obviously things that you want to risk that you want to mitigate. So, I've talked today, and I talk a lot about taking action, but like you don't want to go out and buy a bad deal and say, well, you told me to take action. Like, I'm not saying that, but as far as like while you're learning, there are going to be failures along the way. And so I think that the first thing is to acknowledge that and understand that things are going to happen that you might consider a failure. Now that failure may turn into a success, or it may turn into pointing you in a different direction. Like I said, with that deal that I did, that changed me from being a flipper to buying and holding a lot of real estate, and opened doors for me that, to build a portfolio. But I think goes back to your mindset. You got to kind of understand going into it that there are going to be failures, and to be kind of cliche, but like when you get knocked down, you got to get back up and do it again. You go into that. The very first when I played high school football, the very first tackling drill that we did. I played football growing up, whole life. 9th grade, I'm all excited. We were in line to do tackling drills. There was this big guy, and I stepped up to the front of the line because people were arguing, and I'm like, I'll go. And he absolutely just runs me over and ends up, I broke my hand during that. Yeah. And so finished out the drill, went through it several more times, and I had a broken hand and broke it in 4 places. And so literally day one of contact, break my hand in 4 places. I was devastated, but I was like, I'm going to figure it out, work through it. Went to they got a cast and all that. They had to wrap my whole arm. It was just my hand, but had to wrap it all the way to my elbow. And within a matter of days, I was back out there, wrapped up. And that wasn't ideal, but it's like, hey, it happened. Got to make the best of it. And so it's that way with business, with life, is you've got to be able to bounce back from failures. I think the people who aren't able to do that are probably, and I mean this in a good way, nice way, they're probably not cut out for entrepreneurship or business and that sort of thing, because there's going to be failures along the way, and you just got to learn from them and then try not to repeat that mistake.
And that's okay too, right? Because there's a place for those people in our economy, right? They're called employees, right?
Absolutely.
And most people are employees. There's nothing wrong with it. But maybe they see the benefits of real estate, so they could invest with you. Like once they get their 401k going or their self-directed IRA, they could start placing money in some real estate deals with some operators that are out there taking action and aren't afraid to fail, or taking the risks and finding the good opportunities. So there's always a way to participate, even if you aren't going to be the one that's out there doing the day-to-day activities, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I have people who lend money on my deals, private money lenders that lend me money to do deals, and they are not involved in any way, any of the, they're not going to be out there doing fix and flips. That's not their, but they like the idea of passive. And you said, talking about the 401ks and IRAs, like you've got all these abilities that people don't realize to self-direct. And so sometimes people are like, well, I wish I could, but I just don't have the money. Well, a lot of people have money sitting in an IRA making very small returns that they can self-direct. So it's about, people have to be educated, but people have to understand like certain things, like we talked about it at the start of the podcast. Like, if you're not good at something, then don't try to keep doing that thing. If entrepreneurship is not something, or real estate investing is just something that a person's just, they don't feel comfortable with it. They're very concerned, about the loss and risk and all that, and overly concerned to take action. And it's like, okay, maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe there's other ways that person can invest more passively, or maybe not at all. Maybe like you said, maybe they're just an employee. That's just kind of, be an employee, have your 401k that they put into the stock market, mutual funds, and, just let it ride. But yeah, that's, I think there's a lot better ways to do it than that. But unfortunately, that's what most of our country, most people do. They work, and they've got a retirement plan. They got no idea how it's invested or what it's invested in. They're just sort of doing what they think is the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, most people aren't even exposed to entrepreneurship. Sometimes it finds you. Like I grew up in a family. My dad was a police officer. My mom was a banker. Like no one was talking about entrepreneurship in my family.
Yeah.
But then when I was 12, I realized I could get a paper out, and I was like, I can go make money. I can do this on my own, right? And I just was a perfect fit for it. But it's not for everyone, and that's totally okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So for those people that are interested, and they're maybe looking for some guidance, how can people find you? Like, where can they? You said you have a YouTube channel, right? That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is great, and that is literally something also that I just recently had kicked off. So my YouTube channel, it's the handle is at Randy.Wolfe, and my last name has an E. So at Randy.Wolfe _REI is my YouTube, and I'm literally putting content out every week. It's free. It's just, I really want to try to give back as much information as I can for free. And then I also have, I set this up a while back too. You can go to randywolfe.org /links. That's randywolfe.org /links. And then that way they can connect with me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and also they can check out that private community that I have there as well if it's something they're interested in as well.
Awesome. Well, Randy, man, it's been good spending some time with you, catching up a bit. I love the way you're running your business. I can just tell that you are passionate about helping people and doing it for the right reasons, right? Like there's the people I meet with people all the time, and right away I'm like, oh boy, here's another one. But I really feel like you are one of those kinds of people who's going to be a good leader, who's also too and out there operating, right? Like a lot of people get into coaching because they realize that they realize that the business side of things is too challenging, and it's easier to sell the coaching than it is to do the thing. But you're doing both, and I think that really says a lot about it, because times change, right? You've been doing it for a while now, but there's market fluctuations, and there's different strategies that work and don't work, and all that changes over time. And so if people aren't actively doing it, then they're not as good of a coach as someone that is. So I commend you for that. And for anybody who's out there listening, if you're thinking about real estate investing, Randy's done, fix and flip, buy and hold, BRRRR, doing some land deals now. So if you're interested in any of those topics, then reach out to Randy, go to his website. We'll put the links in the show notes here for you guys to go and click through and check out Randy's content. You're going to learn a bunch from it. So go check that out. But Randy, I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, man, I've really enjoyed it. The time has flown by, man. I appreciate it. It was great to be on your podcast, man. And just thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been my pleasure. And everybody who's listening, thank you for listening to this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. Keep an eye out for really amazing guests like Randy here in the future. And go share this podcast with others, share it with your friends, family, like it, follow us, because we're always going to bring in new guests, have a bunch of cool experiences, and we'll teach you some things, and maybe most importantly, just inspire you to take massive action. So thanks for listening, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next time.